Hey friends, how's it going? Ash here, welcome back to Gents. Paco Rabanne has said, you know what's better than 1 million flanker per year? 2 1 million flankers per year. Nice. And both of these have a dark aesthetic to them. Originally it was 1 million night elixir, but that's old, that's lame now. Thing's been out for a few months, it's a friggin' dinosaur. Sucks. I gotta have the newest stuff. Enter 1 million black. This one just dropped at Harrods, but kind of with a catch. I bought it the second that it popped up, but then like 2 days later they took it down. So I think they maybe put it up there earlier than they were supposed to. But they did ship it to me, so no harm, no foul. I'm gonna let you guys know how 1 million black smells in just a second, but first off, let's take a look at the presentation. First, the box. On the front, you have a comically oversized 1. Yes, for 1 million black, they went with a massive 1 with 2 spherical design things. It looks like a key. If you turn it to the side, it looks like a key. You have nothing on the sides of the box. Up top, you have a little R, and on the back, you have 91% natural origin formula. Nice. On the bottom, badge code, barcode, QR code, ingredients, just all the codes. And my badge code is 61621. Let's take a look at the bottle. Again, a huge 1 on the front that's actually a plaque that they kind of put on there. It puts the 3D element on 1 million elixir and 1 million night elixir to shame. Pathetic for a baby. Look how tiny that is. Now we're freaking talking. On the front, you also have a black faceplate this time, but one thing that is a little bit annoying is they went with a gold color for the atomizer and the casing around the atomizer. I think it would look better if they took the black one from 1 million night elixir and used that one instead of the gold here. Then it'd be all blacked out, which would make more sense with the name black. Instead, it just looks kind of weird to the side here. And I know you could say, well, the gold, you know, it's supposed to match this color here, but they're actually different shades of gold. It just looks stupid. Not a huge deal, but kind of annoying. You have the R on top of the atomizer. On the bottom, you're gonna find your badge code etched into the glass. And let's go ahead and hit a couple sprays as well. Here we go. All right. Now, if I can find this one, I'll have it linked in the description. Like I said, I bought it from Harrods. It was actually only $125, so pretty cheap. 125 bucks. That's actually really cheap, comparatively speaking to most new launches. Now, before we jump into the fragrance itself, a few codes for you just really quickly. They're also in the description. You can copy and paste them if you want. I have a bunch of codes for JOMASHOP that only work within the JOMASHOP app, and then a code to save 10% off at Fragflex, among a bunch of other codes. Okay, so 1 million black. This one is set up specifically, according to Rabanne themselves, to appeal to Gen Z. So basically, as of when I'm filming this video, that means people between the ages of 14 and 29, which is a decently wide age range, but yeah, Rabanne is basically saying that Gen Z, they don't really know or care that much about the original 1 million. You know, they weren't around when that was really popping. So they're like, okay, we're gonna make 1 million black specifically for them. Now, some of you out there are gonna hear that and go, oh God. And then others are gonna hear that and be like, So that context is important because this is not really a 1 million flanker in the sense of it trying to harken back to what 1 million is or was or whatever. It's basically a generational reboot. What I'm saying is they're not really trying to look at the original 1 million and take much of any kind of inspiration from that. They're basically just doing their own thing here. Outside of, I guess, they are still trying to make it loud and attention grabbing like the original was, just in a completely different way. Also, the note breakdown here is really simple. Yeah, once again. So apparently Gen Z, they think you guys can't handle more than 3 notes, but that's okay because most brands nowadays think that nobody can handle more than 3 notes, so it's not a generational thing at this point. Roasted pineapple off the top, vanilla in the mid, but technically it's a trio of vanillas, so maybe that counts as more than 1 note. And then ebony wood in the base. So that's your note breakdown. And 1 million black does open with a big blast of pineapple. Not really like a roasted pineapple because it doesn't have too much of a smoky aspect or a charred aspect when you first spray it on, but definitely a big blast of pineapple. And to the surprise of absolutely nobody, it's really sweet when you first spray it on. And that sweetness has a really tropical, fruity lean. A little bit like Herbapura-esque, but more masculine leaning, and obviously with that big blast of pineapple in place of passion fruit. But if you imagine that overall kind of like tropical fruit bowl opening that one hits with, this is taken in a different direction, but you could say that it's maybe looking to that type of opening for inspiration and going, okay, we're gonna do a play on that. So it's not gonna smell the same as that fragrance or the multitude of other fragrances that are kind of in that style, but just that overall hit, the way the tropical fruit opens there, you get some of that here. When you first spray it on, it's got a really nice brightness, a good lift to it, but as it settles in, it starts to get this, this kind of creamy undertone to it. And it does hit so hard off the top with that sweetness that it almost feels like this compressed sweetness, the way that it comes off your skin. You've got the pineapple, it's also a little syrupy. You have this kind of ambery warmth and sweetness that starts to pop up. You've got this almost vanilla cream aspect, this floral sort of muskiness as well. And all of that is like fused together in this like sugared blast as it settles in the opening. Now I know depending on where you look, I think the brand may talk about, you know, sophistication and this, that, and the other thing with this fragrance. Not so much, not for me. Now I'm not saying it smells bad off the top, I'm just saying it's packing a punch and it's really screaming for attention in the modern, overdosed, you know, vanilla, tropical, fruity blast type of vibe. That's what this is. Basically, it feels like you got people together in a boardroom and you were like, okay, what's hot right now? What do the kids like? And somebody was like, oh, tropical fruits. And they went, okay, good, write that down. What else? Lots of sugar, vanilla, lots. Like a lot. Okay, jot that down, jot that down. And then basically the dude at the head of the boardroom went, nice, wrap it up. That's it, that's the brief. So that's kind of how the opening starts, but it does change. It does evolve as it heads into the mid. It actually picks up kind of a caramel vibe to it. By the way, they probably brought that up in the boardroom too. The pineapple starts to fade back a bit the longer that it dries on your skin. You can still pick it up, but it's not anywhere near as prominent as when you first spray this on. But what it does smell like, and this is, I guess, the roast pineapple, is a pineapple slice. And you take one of those torches like they use for creme brulee, and you just put a little sugar over the top of the pineapple itself, and then you crisp that sugar up. So you get that caramelized edge, you get that little bit of sugar, you get maybe a faint waft of what roasted pineapple would be, but without any kind of like campfire or incense or anything like that. The main part of the fragrance at this point is gonna be vanilla, kind of vanilla mixed with tonka, but really a big pop of that vanilla. It's rich, it's unapologetically sugary, also gets a touch powdery, but not heavy-handed with the powder. Almost like a black vanilla note, you know, slightly resinous the way that it hits the further it stays on your skin. You also get a touch of woodiness in the background, so you get this big change from the opening where it's a huge blast of tropical fruit and pineapple that starts to change into more of a warm caramel vanilla overdose sort of scent as it goes through the mid and into the dry down. And for me, once you do hit that dry down, talking about it being on your skin for a couple hours at least, the fruit has pretty much gone away. And even though ebony wood is the only base note, it's not a fragrance that has a big presence of woodiness. It does finally start to poke up a little bit more, you know, 3 or 4 hours in, but it's still not a heavy woody presence in here. It's more so providing a structure for the other notes to kind of bounce off of, instead of being a focal point of the fragrance itself. The vanilla and the dry down is still gonna be the main part of the scent, but it's not as aggressive as it was earlier on, so it's not gonna be as like potentially headache inducing, which we'll get to in a second. And in the far dry down, you do occasionally get ribbons of smoke, just like little wafts. You know, it's nothing all that strong. It's not anything that's gonna, you know, cause a lot of attention, but it does add a little depth, you know, a little nuance in there, so that it's not just vanilla leftovers and a touch of wood, you know. So it still smells rich, but it's not as overdosed with the sweetness as you might expect after it's all had a chance to burn away. 4 or 5 hours in, it actually smells really nice. Like everything has leveled out. They figured out how to work together nicely. And it is a massive difference from how it opens once you hit that dry down. Basically faint dark woods with little bits of the caramel, the vanilla, a touch of smoke wafting through. And at that point, it's no longer trying to physically overpower you. Works well. Which, speaking of that, let's talk performance. The performance here is exactly what you would think it would be, considering what this is supposed to be. So imagine this doesn't exist, but somebody came up to you and they said, okay, Rabanne's coming out with a new fragrance, Paco Rabanne, and this is everything they've said. You tell me how strong you think it'll be. They've said it has an overdose of vanilla, 3 specific kinds. They've said they're marketing it especially towards Gen Z, which kind of has a reputation for wanting everything to be stronger, stronger, stronger no matter what. It's in the 1 million lineup. It's gonna be kind of marketed towards evening use. Oh yeah, and they're also throwing in a big tropical fruit explosion off the top. You would be like, oh, it's gonna be nuclear. It's gonna be ridiculous. And that's pretty much what it is, yeah. The opening here is enormous. When I first spray this stuff on, it is massive. And even though as it dries down, obviously that projection is gonna come in a little bit closer, you know, it's not gonna fill the entire room up for the entire time that you're wearing it, it's still really, really strong. And the longevity is extreme. So I sprayed this on earlier today, about 8 hours ago. Not even heavy. We're talking just like 2 sprays right here. And I can still smell it very, very, very easily. That's one of the main selling points for the fragrance. That's what they're going for. Everything here is kind of trying to be ostentatious. They made the one like 10 times bigger than it has been on, you know, any of the previous fragrances, just to like really slam it in your face. That sounds weird. But yeah, you know what I'm saying here. They want you to know this is loud. It's unapologetic. It is what it is. Now, in terms of seasonality, it is for fall and winter time. Like right now, it's hot. And I've been wearing this the last couple of days and I've hated it. When I'm just hanging out at the house, no big deal, whatever, you know, the temperature's not crazy high. But when I've been out and about with this thing on, I hate it. To me, it is disgusting. When it's through the mid and it's like 90 degrees Fahrenheit outside, which is this in Celsius. With really high humidity, this stuff just chokes you out. It's that kind of fragrance that physically assaults you. Now, I'm not gonna exaggerate and say that it gave me a raging headache, because it didn't. And I'm not gonna say that it almost made me puke, because it didn't do that either. That's how you say puke. Puke. What I will say though is, it did not smell nice to me. It was really, really heavy. Obviously not made for summertime use, but you know, gotta do what you gotta do. And I just felt like a giant douche wearing it around because it was really hot outside. And it just felt out of place. You know, you smell it in the air and you'd be like, oh God, it's so heavy. Fall and winter time though, I think it would smell amazing when it's cold out. Fall, winter, leans evening use, but I could pull it off during the day pretty easily, assuming that it's chilly outside. So just dumbing that down, fall and winter, yes please. Cool spring weather, potentially, you know, little restraint, yeah. Summer heat, nah, keep that the f away from me. So what's the overall verdict, the pros, the cons? Well, taking all of Rabanne's strategy into account, this makes absolutely perfect sense exactly how it is. It's trying to keep 1 million's function the same as it has been from the beginning, which is being a sweet, loud, attention-getting fragrance, but it's not really trying to take the original smell and do a modern version of that at all. Because when you think about it, the original 1 million was a loud, sexually charged, you know, attention-grabbing fragrance for young men back in the 2000s. Black wants to be the same thing, just for the current generation instead of the previous. Back then, it was about cinnamon, leather, amber, and just, you know, obnoxious success. Money, cars, women, etc., etc. Now it's pineapple, vanilla, caramelized sugars, tropical musks, and enough projection to alter local air quality. And even though I made fun of it and said that it's basically a boardroom saying, hey, what's popular with the kids right now? Can we just do some of that? And basically taking all of the different things and putting it into one fragrance, it works. For what they're trying to do, I think a lot of people are gonna love it. Now, a lot of people are also gonna say that it's just a headache-inducing chemical mess, but I guarantee you some people are gonna think that this is just absolutely awesome. It's not trying to be subtle. It's not trying to be restrained. It's not trying to be perfume as art. It is Rabanne rebuilding the 1 million attitude for a new generation. That's what they're doing. And outside of high heat situations, I actually like the way this smells. I know it's made for younger guys, but this stuff works, especially in the far dry down. Once most of that sweetness kind of goes away, it's really good at that point. Some parts in the opening and mid can be a little bit overwhelming, but that's what they're going for. If you learn to live with that, not too bad. Pros and cons. The opening, the huge pineapple-driven opening, really nice. As it heads through the end of the opening into the mid, it has this nice smooth undertone, a little bit floral-esque without any official floral notes. That smells good too. The caramel roasted pineapple effect that comes in through the mid is also really nicely done. The projection and the longevity are massive, so if you're after that, this will do it for you. And if you're after compliments, this is absolutely the kind of fragrance that can grab attention for you. And the final pro, assuming that this is the actual price that it goes for once it pops up in stores all across the US, $125 for a 100 ml size bottle is actually not that expensive. Now the cons. It is extremely sugary through the opening and mid. and that can be off-putting. At times, the texture of the fragrance is also really dense, especially in the opening. It can come across just very heavy, at least if it's hot outside. Another con, absolutely don't wear this in high heat. I know that goes without saying, but I have to say it again. And the final con, if you're somebody that's just tired of all the tropical fruit explosion openings, of all the crazy vanilla forward scents, and frankly also the caramel that pops up all the time, this is basically tailor-made to be something you'll hate. So there we go, guys. 1 Million Black, that's the story on it. I wanna thank you guys for hanging with me. Stay safe out there, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys.